Welcome to the MindKind Men's Wellbeing podcast with your host, Nick Morris. Before we begin, a small disclaimer. This podcast has been partly funded by Walsall Public Health as a part of their mental health wellbeing grant. We are very grateful for their support, but would like to confirm that they have no editorial input into this podcast or its content. The views, thoughts and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts or opinions of either the MindKind Projects, Walsall Council or Public Health Walsall, or any other affiliated organisations. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only and is not presented as medical advice. If you'd like to support or more information around mental health and well-being, please see the links below. Please reach out. You are not alone.
Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of the MindKind Men's Wellbeing podcast. Fantastic to have you here. As always, I'm your host, Nick Morris. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. Always appreciated. Now, today I'm joined by Tim. Tim is a member of our men's peer support group. He's also someone that professionally works with families for the local authority, supporting them in whatever means. We won't go too into that, but I think the best thing to know is that Tim's work is heavy sometimes. It's supporting other people, and I know as well as anyone that whether that's professionally or personally, when you're supporting other people, really easy to neglect yourself. And you'll hear from this episode that Tim's been on a real journey of self-improvement. Of really looking at himself and kind of trying to upskill himself to be the best version of him and improve his well-being. So whether you work in a similar industry or not, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably taking a good hard look at yourself, like we all need to do sometimes. So hopefully you'll find value in this episode. It's always a pleasure to speak with Tim. It certainly was a pleasure to record with him, so please enjoy. So just before we bring on Tim, I just want to have a quick plug. Just want to pop in a very, very quick plug here. So here at the MindKind Projects, we have created a men's online wellbeing course. It's a 6-session course called Strength. We've chosen Strength for many reasons that we'll explore in the course. It's a resource for men to be able to access 24/7, completely free, and it is all about improving that well-being. We've created it in co-creation with the men that we work with, based on our own lived experience, their lived experience, our own expertise, and we are awfully proud of it. It's launching very soon. Now, if you head over to mindkindcourses.com, that's mindkindcourses.com, all one word. You will see my ugly mug and you will see some information on how you can sign up as part of, I suppose, the pre-release, to be informed when we are going to be releasing it, which is very, very soon. I'm not too sure when this one's going to be released, so just to let you know that it is coming. So please sign up on there. We think it's an excellent resource. I've utilised a lot of the things, well, pretty much all of the things in there, as have a lot of the men that I work with, and we've had fantastic results. More information, mindkindcourses.com, completely free. What have you got to lose? See you there. Cool. Hello, Tim. Keep that in. Yeah. Fantastic. Did that catch you by surprise? No, I say we keep this in.
Tim. Who are you again, Nick?
So I did my intro before, so the people at home will know who I am, and I will also have mentioned who you are as well. But Tim, as you know, when I said, look, we're doing this podcast, you are someone that professionally I speak to quite a bit, but also you attend the men's MindKind peer support group. And we talk a lot about kind of well-being, mental health, and all that good stuff, and lots of stuff in between. So when we started kind of talking about this podcast, I'm like, well, we got to get Tim on, because we had lots of different conversations that I think are interesting. So you are now on the podcast, Tim. How does it feel?
Amazing.
All right, fantastic. That'll be the advertisement. Tim, tell us about yourself.
don't know where to start really, but I'm going to pick things up. I think just over a year ago, someone close to me said, "You're not the person that you used to be," effectively, and that got me thinking. Well, what did they think I was like, and why am I not the person they thought I was?
Yeah.
And it led me to join a men's group, with men in a similar situation, and I got a lot of help and advice and support of those men. And the last year, I know that I have changed a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So you had changed, and now you've changed again. So that's potentially quite a challenging thing. You are not the person that I thought you were. You were not the person that you used to be. Arguably, that could be like a really positive thing. You've changed so much, or it can be a real negative thing. What you're saying is that actually this was something not quite positive originally. The person that you were was not the person that you once were. Was that a good thing or a bad thing?
It effectively, it made me evaluate myself, or who did they think I was, and who do I now want to be?
Yeah.
And that has, I've read lots of books, done lots of soul searching and thinking about who I actually want to be, and how I want to present myself to other people. And I've had to think about my life physically.
Yeah.
I've got to an age where playing team sport is not something I'm really able to do much of anymore. So I wanted to improve my physical, doing something to improve my fitness.
Yeah.
I used to be a runner a long time ago, and due to injuries at the end of my football career, I struggled to even run, and due to those injuries, I couldn't really do anything for a good 6 months or more. And then laziness, apathy, and then not really knowing what to do next came in. So a year ago, I started to do more in the sort of gym type work, and then started running a little bit more, but not very regularly. But recently I've started to run regularly, and I find that really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And I also thought physically, I've got too comfortable. I'm, wasn't looking the sort of person I wanted to look. I've always traditionally looked quite fit.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there anymore. Put on a lot of weight for various reasons, some of them health related.
Yeah.
But I've got that dealt with, and I've started to lose weight over the last year. And I've showed you a photo a while ago, saying this was me just before the millennium, and this is how I'm going to look by the end of the year.
Looking full men's health circa 1999.
And I'm now, starting to feel the benefits. My body's taking much better, more the shape of what it was.
Yeah.
Some 24 years ago.
So when we'll definitely pick back up on that physical health side of things, because that's, we know that's important. But when you were presented with this sense of, okay, I'm going to have a good look at myself about a year ago, and at that point you decided some things need to change. What did you see at that point a year ago? What were you seeing in the mirror that you thought this is something I need to change about myself? And by seeing in the mirror, I don't just mean physically, I'm talking, Yeah,
I think it was through this men's group that I was in at the time, which I'm still a part of. They led me to read some books and led me to take a look at myself really, and realised, and one of the things, one of the first things I said was, keep calm.
Yeah.
And that sounds really simple, and yet I think often we think, well, that's going to be really hard, and actually I found that really easy, because my mantra or my thought pattern every day is keep calm no matter what. I can do it.
How?
And I don't know.
because there's lots of people that'll be listening that'll be like, I could do a bit more calmness, and then they get cut up on the road, or there's a million things. Life happens, and that intention of being calm suddenly disappears. So what?
Not saying I've got it nailed every moment, every day, but I know that I don't take every opportunity to berate other drivers.
Mm.
It's a lot less frequent and probably a lot less
Yeah.
severe. And, you know, it serves no purpose really, ranting and raving.
So what? So what? How do you? What did you do to keep calm?
Well, it's partly just making a decision
Yeah.
that I am going to keep calm, and then sometimes I perhaps use breathing or just take a time out really from the situation.
Yeah.
To make sure that I don't overstep the marks that I want to make.
I think that's that sense of kind of realizing it's a decision at first, and there's times where you think, well, that didn't feel like much of a decision. I had to. It was so anger, all of the emotions, but I was so quick to anger that it didn't feel like a decision. So to be able to create that space, like metacognition, they call it, you know, that space between thinking and doing, and thinking about thinking, is that sense of kind of realizing it is a decision, creating the space to actually make that decision is something that I think lots of people really hopefully will come to realize that actually your emotions are something that you can generally, but generally it's something that you can choose. And I think calmness is definitely something that people can choose to be with the right tools once you realize that it is a choice, I think.
Yeah, something else that I've started doing over the last year, which has helped a little bit with my weight, is intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And when you say I'm not going to eat until such and such a time, then anybody offers you food, it's not a decision you've got to make because you've already made that decision.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll go through periods where I won't drink for a while.
Yeah.
Drink alcohol, and again, there's no decision to make. I've chosen I'm not going to drink. I don't have a decision to make.
Yeah.
So by choosing to keep calm, the decision's made that my aim is to keep calm.
Yeah.
And therefore it's a lot easier, I think, than having all the options of like anger or whatever available to you, because you've already chosen that my choice is to keep calm in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost limiting the possibilities is actually creating up a lot more freedom to live in a much nicer way. It's almost like there's a documentary on Netflix, The Minimalists. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's kind of what it says on the tin. It's basically the idea is that we have so much choice, and we have so much so many options, and I'm talking kind of the clothes we wear, the things we consume, the choices that we make, the decisions that we make, things we eat, the emotions that we jump to, that actually sometimes limiting those things actually creates more bandwidth to have the freedom to act and live and do in a way that's more aligned with you. For example, Steve Jobs, one of the richest person, at the time, one of the richest I think he was the richest person in the world at the time, but he, weren't short of a few pennies. And he must had a uniform. He'd wear the same thing every day. And by making that the decision that this is just what I'm wearing, it's one less choice to make. And I think sometimes if you can apply that to kind of realizing who you are, realizing what your values are, and using that as a framework of, well, I wouldn't do that because that's not who I am. It's not a choice for me. I'm just not the kind of person that has to do those things. And those things can be whatever. Those things can be anger. Those things can be alcohol, drugs. It doesn't matter. But if you know yourself really well and you make a decision that actually this is who I am, and to be congruent and in line with who I am, I already know the decisions. I don't have to think about certain decisions. They're already made for me because I know my core values. I know who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's something that I've built on is deciding what my core values are.
Yeah.
And how I turn up to things. And I guess the aim has been over the last year is to be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
And I think I'm getting somewhere near that now. I'm much more aware of who I am, how I turn up to things, and who I want to be, who I want people to see.
So what was that process like? So we start off and you were challenged with who you were, and that caused you to self-reflect.
Yeah.
And then, so upon self-reflection, kind of what's that what did you see, and what's the next steps in that? You read quite a few books and what have you, but what was that? What did that look like? That initial kind of self-reflection?
I think one of the first things was to look at boundaries, and those are boundaries for myself, but boundaries for other people. What I'm prepared, how people might talk to me, or how they might try and perceive me or use me in any way.
Yeah.
That I can actually set boundaries and say, I'm not having that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're not prepared to work within my boundaries, then there's no space for you to be with, in my life, really.
Yeah, yeah. So getting to know yourself and what you tolerate, what you're happy with, what you want, and what you. So tell me about. You said that you kind of worked out your values, or you knew your values, and you were living in line with those. And I'm sure knowing your values helps set your boundaries, because you know what you're willing to take and not take. So how did you work out what your values were? Because there's probably lots of people, and we do a lot of values work. So in the Be MindKind course, and also men's peer support, and our one-to-ones, we talk about values quite a lot. And I think for some people, it's like, look, I just want to feel better. Yeah, but you need to know who you are, so that you understand what better is, because it's different for everyone. So how did you work out what your values were?
Through the books that I was reading,
Yeah.
I picked out various things that I wanted to be, who I wanted to turn up as.
Yeah.
And I actually use my phone,
Yeah.
home screen, as a way of storing that. And if ever I need to remind myself, then it's there.
Yeah.
Don't know if you want me to say what some of them are.
If you're comfortable to. I mean, depends what it says, but you tell us.
I'm a man with integrity who is confident, compassionate, emotionally strong, generous in love, a giver, a leader. And that means not a leader of people necessarily, but a leader of my own life, deciding what I want to do,
Yeah.
how I'm going to do that. But also, hopefully, a person that other people want to follow as well. I'm kind, not nice. And one of the best books that I read was No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah.
How you can easily feel that you're being nice but expecting something in return.
Yeah.
And so being kind, you do things without expecting anything in return. And that was a big game changer, I think, for me.
Yeah.
A listener, so somebody who really listens to people properly, and not just sort of. And also, by listening, you're not. One of my biggest faults, I think, is when I listen to people, I give them advice. And sometimes within my job, that is something that I need to do. But actually, a lot of the time, people have the answer to their problem themselves.
Yeah.
I think the more I can learn to get to just listen, and then maybe to get people to answer their own issues if that's what's needed. But that was a big learning curve for me, is learning to listen. Somebody who's a learner, I want to continuously learn. I'm not just going to think, oh, I've reached this stage, that's it. I want to continuously learn. So I've got more books and I want to read. And if you struggle with reading, then there's loads of audio books as well. And sometimes that can be an easier way of accessing it. Somebody who is teachable. I think there are times when maybe I've not been that teachable.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to be able to absorb things from other people and learn from other people, and not just be somebody who thinks that they've got it made. There's always something new to learn.
So some of those things that you're talking about now, boundary setting, no more Mr. Nice Guy, which we should definitely pick up on, but also, being teachable, developing, listen, like there has to be a certain sense of kind of humility there, to have looked at yourself and gone, well, this is who I am, this is who I want to be, these are the changes that I need to make. Like that can be quite a challenging thing, to actually look at yourself and go, these are the things that I'm not entirely happy about, these are the things that I need to change. Like how did you find that challenging? Did you find it empowering?
I think more empowering. Yes, there will be challenges, because when you take a good look at yourself, I guess there are going to be things that you're not really keen to learn about yourself. But I've always seen that as, okay, that was, something that I recognise in myself.
Yeah.
And now I've got the tools to improve on myself, to be the person who's going to be better than I was.
Yeah.
And then just continuously improve on yourself in order to, um, yeah, be a much better person.
Yeah.
That when I show up, people see a person who they like, somebody who they find is a kind person. And I would have always thought that I was a kind person, but realizing that that's not actually who was showing up to other people
Yeah.
is a bit of a shocker, really. But at the same time, now I know I'm not going back.
So talk to me, because you've spoken to me before about this No More Mr. Nice Guy, and I've read it, but it was a long time ago, I have to say. So you speak there about the difference between being kind and nice, and you also spoke about boundaries, which obviously links into that. So yeah, talk to me about that. Talk to me about the impact that had and that book had on you.
So if you go through life thinking you're being nice, you're a nice guy,
Yeah.
and actually you do things expecting something in return, that is going to damage the relationship you have with other people. But if you do something, even something as simple as doing the washing up at home, expecting, something in return, whereas now I just do the washing up because it needs doing.
Yeah.
So it's a real mental shift in doing things because you need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say has been like the impact on your well-being of shifting from that nice to kind, I suppose?
Don't know. It's hard to see myself, I think. But now I know what I know, then I know that I can go forward, not causing damage in relationships. Another thing that I realised recently was that sometimes I like to help people, but actually sometimes I can be too helpful. Sometimes I can almost take over doing something for other people.
Yeah.
And that was a shocker.
Yeah.
I think people always want to be helped, right?
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes when you almost take over somebody else, then the message they're reading into that is, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
You couldn't do this without me, so I'm doing it for you.
Yeah.
And that was like, whoa, you know, take a step back, encourage people to do things themselves. Don't try to do things for other people if it's something they're more than capable of doing for themselves.
But sometimes it's about kind of, I think definitely that is true. It's much more empowering. But also, one is if you are looking to help other people and you end up taking over, well, who are you actually looking to help, yourself or that other person? Do you want to be seen as the person that's helped? Which is a nice, we can talk about altruism and being being kind for the sake of being kind, but we all want to feel nice and warm and fuzzy about that. But at the same time, if you do find yourself really taking over, then is that for you? Is that for them, or is that for your own ego? And I think that's something that I often ask myself, particularly in the line of work that I'm in, is kind of critically reflecting and thinking, who was that for? Was it for them or was it for me? And if it was for me, then I need to do something about it.
I think sometimes it can be hard to dissect that. I think you think you're doing it for them, but actually maybe there is deep down an element where you are doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I work in a similar field, and I like to be helping people, supporting people, but ultimately they need to take ownership of their own journey and be able to do things themselves.
Yeah.
Me doing it for them does not help. Me doing it with them is starting to empower them, and then me releasing them to do that for themselves is the real empowerment, and it can make it sustainable for people.
And that's the word, sustainable. So you took ownership of your own wellbeing journey and you read the right books. What would you say are like the practical things that you've implemented or learned from these books and your own research that has had the most impact on you?
That's a difficult question. It's some of it's become embedded, so I can't even remember it.
Yeah. All right. So maybe not even
of it is, it's just continuous learning. But actually remembering some of those highlights is actually quite hard for me right now.
So what are the habits that, I suppose a different way of asking that would be, what are the habits that you do now? What are the things that you do now that you didn't do a year ago that you feel has impacted your well-being?
I think taking routine and getting up and having purpose. I think having a purpose in life is so important. And I think I'd got very comfortable, and when you're comfortable and you haven't got a purpose, and I think a lot of the damage was caused by COVID. Even though I worked through COVID, you lose your social streams. And when everything went back, my social streams really didn't take off. I didn't have those groups of people to go back out with again for various reasons. And it makes you isolated. And that's one of the areas I'm now working on even more, is trying to reestablish more social circles and get out and meet more new people and do things. And we were talking about this week, weren't we? And I know I go out and do some things, but I want to go out and meet the right people, if that makes sense. And people would think, well, how do I do that? But it's about finding something you enjoy doing. And I can remember way back when I was at uni, I had my first major breakup, came right out of the blue, absolutely floored me. And I was like, I need to go out and do something for me. And I went out and did karaoke. I love singing. And like now I'm in a male voice choir, but we don't really get much of a chance to socialise that much, really. But at that time, going out, doing karaoke once a week, meeting other people, enjoying listening to them singing myself was really, really healing for me, I think. And gave me a sense of purpose as well. And I think, getting out, joining a group, doing something you enjoy, and if you don't know, just go and try different things.
Almost window shopping for something meaningful, and seeing what kind of fits. And
the people that you then start to associate with are going to be, at least you've got one thing in common, one thing that you can talk about. And I think that's a really useful way to get started in making new friends.
So you're looking for this meaning. You're at the moment, obviously, when you went through that breakup previously, but now you're looking to kind of go out and make some meaningful connections ultimately. What else in your day-to-day are you doing that you feel has really had an impact in your well-being?
So, like the routine, in the morning, trying to get with a purpose, reading something that is uplifting, and is going to help me grow. Do that continuously. I think that's a really good way of keeping yourself focused on doing new things and different things and self-improvement. Trying to not let life just pass me by, but trying to manage my life, trying to be in control of the things that I choose to do, not just letting things just happen because they always have, or because that's just what I always done. And part of that is regular exercise. I'd got to a point where I really wasn't doing a great deal of exercise, and now, not every day, but sometimes I exercise every day. I've now bought a few bits and pieces of gym equipment I can use at home for what, I don't know why, but if I had loads of time, I'd love to go to the gym, several times a week. But for me, it works. I can sit down and watch a bit of TV and be doing a bit of working out at the same time and building, building the physique that I want without even having to leave my home. And then, like I say, taking up regular running now and park runs is now going to help keep me accountable, I think, and it gives me something to aim for, because you're really racing against yourself, even though there's other people there. You're trying to beat your best time, or set yourself a target to try and
have you done a park run recently?
I did my first one a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going again this Saturday.
Oh, nice. I've been. It's so funny because park runs for me was I've not run in a while, but I'm at the gym. I've picked the gym back up, but I would run by myself, and I'd really like that. Like, I loved, and particularly when I was doing long distances, I would download certain podcasts, music. I'd concoct a whole playlist. So I'd be like, right, I'm gonna need at the beginning. So I'd run for about an hour. So the beginning, I'm gonna get something a bit high energy, get into it, and then I'm gonna want to go deep, and so I'm gonna listen to a really interesting podcast for the half an hour, and then I might get a little bit esoteric because you get that runner's high. So I'm listening to like certain things, and then towards the end, when I'm flagging, I'd make this really like heavy kind of stuff that's like stuff that would re-energize me. And really turn it into this whole process. And I really enjoyed it. And then I got to a stage where it almost just felt not lonely, but I don't know. The love just disappeared after a while. And I did a park run, and exactly what you said, just that sense of community, having people around me, the healthy competition, the male ego being what it is. It was my quickest time, but it was just being around people. And what I really loved about the park run was the fact that it was all walks of life. There were people there that clearly went every week, and they lapped you twice and no one cared. And then you had people that were doing it with push chairs, and people that weren't that clearly weren't completely able-bodied. And it was just that sense of kind of everyone's just doing it together, and it doesn't matter where you fall on the scale. So I'd recommend, if you're able to, and if you don't feel you're able to, maybe really look into it, because lots of people that probably felt they weren't able to, complete it. But yeah, park runs are fantastic to get that sense of, and on a Saturday morning as well. It's nice to start your
gets you up
weekend.
and doing something. It
Yeah,
beats
yeah.
spending 2 hours flicking through Facebook or whatever and literally doing nothing, which is
Oh,
quite often what I'll do on a Saturday morning.
yeah, yeah,
And you think you've been 10, 15 minutes, and you look up and you're like, that's an hour gone. And then you think, oh, just have a look at this. And then there's another hour gone.
yeah,
So by getting up and getting moving, you got your fitness in for the day.
yeah.
And like I say, you met some people, and then I realised I knew quite a few people there. And then you start talking to other people. Oh, I've done a park run. Oh, I'd like to do that, or something.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
gives you
yeah.
a chance, something to talk about to other people as well.
Yeah,
And literally, there are people who walk really quite, not particularly fast either, who do it. But I hope, hopefully they will start pushing themselves to build up to a jog or whatever. But
yeah.
so as long as you can walk 5K, then you can get started on it.
And I mean, if you can walk 5K very slowly, and it's going to take you a long time, and you're going to have lots of breaks, then so be it.
Yeah,
Like so
nobody cares.
be it.
Everybody
No one
wants
cares.
just to improve on yourself.
Yeah, it's
Be
nice.
better next time.
It's a nice atmosphere. It's a really nice atmosphere, actually. You've probably inspired me a little bit, actually. I need to.
Saturday morning.
I mean, that's not. Yeah, well, we're not sure when we're going to release this, so I'll see you on a Saturday morning at some point. No. I'm definitely up for something like that. So yeah, we spoke about the fact that you're kind of on this journey, and a lot of what you're saying really points. What it makes me think of is that sense of, I suppose, accountability in a way, because you spoke about the fact that you took ownership of your own journey, you really self-reflected, you reinforced some boundaries, and you really took ownership of your own well-being journey. What would you say for someone that kind of is maybe doing that proverbial look in the mirror themselves, and they're not entirely happy with what they're seeing, whether that's physically or just kind of how they're living. They're not happy at the moment, but also they're not feeling that sense of kind of achievement or meaning. What would you say would be the next steps for someone who's in that place? Because there's lots of men and women that are in that place.
I think just setting yourself a simple target, like I say, having a purpose, understanding what your purpose is, what you're actually aiming for. So for me, one of the things I want to aim for this year is to walk up Snowdon, or the mountain formerly known as Snowdon.
Oh yeah.
They changed the name it to the.
If you could say it in Welsh, please be correct. We'd appreciate it, Tim.
So that's one of my targets for the year. But also, getting out running more, and now, I want to hope that I can get back to doing a half marathon again.
Yeah.
Whether that's this year or next year's target, I don't know. But
yeah. So that feels like a target.
In the distance, but the short term is to do a half marathon, and then when I'm doing that, I want to improve, my ability to talk to other people.
Yeah.
So by meeting with lots of people that I don't know, there's a chance to try and connect and talk to people that I don't know.
Yeah.
Build my confidence. I think my confidence got knocked a few years ago.
Yeah.
In talking to other people. Sometimes I connect with people really quickly and easily, and I can talk to them no problem. And other times I really struggle.
Yeah. So what are you? So you're getting out there. You certainly sound like you're pushing yourself out your comfort zone.
Yeah, and that's by meeting new people and then trying to build up a conversation with them. Then that is exactly that, isn't it? And
Yeah.
whether it's just trying to make a joke when I'm at the checkout at the supermarket or something like that, which I quite often do, it's just trying to build that confidence to do those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I guess that links back to that sense of being vulnerable enough to kind of put yourself out there and do some things that isn't in your comfort zone, and vulnerable enough that is outside your comfort zone, and vulnerable enough to actually look at yourself and go, right, these are the things in my life that maybe I need to improve on. So what are what's the next kind of steps for you? What's your, because you spoke there about targets, you want to climb Snowdon, but what's the purpose? And what's the purpose of you going on this journey? Because that's a different thing to a target.
What I have learned over the last year is not something I just want to keep to myself. It's something I want to share with other people.
Yeah.
And my passion at the moment, my purpose is to help other men and women,
Yeah.
men in particular,
Yeah.
to be better versions of themselves,
Yeah.
to be better partners or potential partners,
Yeah.
and to be better fathers. And, I think I've learned so many skills, things, tips, and ideas that I can share with people to help them on that journey to improve themselves.
So what are the biggest things that, if you had to distill some of the most important tips or the most actionable ones or the things that maybe have had the biggest impact on you or someone else, what would they be? Putting you on the spot.
Sometimes, yeah, it is. And sometimes I think you really need to look at the individual. I need to get into a conversation with them, see where they're at. And sometimes I can see why this part of your life is a struggle. And then I can advise them in that way. And I think I've shared quite a few of those sort of ideas
Yeah.
so far already.
Yeah, 100%. I think so too. But I think it's just that it's quite interesting, really, that as men, when we see people on this journey, and we see people that are looking to really improve themselves, it's easy to it's about, we need these role models, and we need people that go, actually, it's okay to be vulnerable and look at yourself. So I want to be a different version of myself, and I want to be a better version of myself. And I think that, like, people like yourself and people that we work with and people in the media, like, we need more men to actually talk about their journeys, talk about their struggles, be vulnerable enough to say, this is the stuff I've got going on, this is the stuff I'm struggling with, and this is the stuff that I'm working on. And I think that is to be able to have those conversations where it's like, it's okay to be vulnerable enough to know that you have to work on some things. I think it's really important. And I think more people like yourself that are able to do that is definitely needed.
I think one of the things I learned from my men's group is take it to the men. Don't ask for advice off, just anybody.
Yeah.
If you take your issue to men,
Yeah.
then their shared experience will often help you to find a solution that is workable for you.
Yeah.
And that's what, once I'd learned, I probably, well, I don't know, by last summer, I was like, I'd love to be able to share this with other people. And, I think if you full on every week sharing stuff, and you need a bit of a social thing. And then there was another group that I was joined that I met Nick through, and then next thing I find out, Nick's running this group, and that's probably towards the end of this last summer is when I joined the group.
Yeah.
And it gives me that chance to either share something that I'm struggling with and get advice off other men, or for other men to share their stuff and for me to encourage them, or to make some suggestions of how they might be able to move on their journey and find a solution.
You spoke there about the sense of take it to the men and speak to other men. Why is it that you think that it's particularly important for men to speak to other men and not just speak to?
Because you're getting a men's perspective.
Yeah.
Men and women are fundamentally different, and the way that they would advise each other would be different, I think.
Okay.
And by talking to the men, we'll also probably have a lot more freedom to share things that we would struggle to share with a mixed group or something like that as well.
Why do you think? I mean, I definitely see that in the group and the work that I do. There's certain things that I know that men have told me I wouldn't speak about this if there was a woman in the room. But why do you think that is?
Makes us feel even more vulnerable, and,
Yeah.
and sometimes it is really hard to admit our failures in front of our fellow men.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
once, we've had some incredible men come along to the men's group and share some really, really dark times in their lives.
yeah,
And that I find that inspiring as well. I come out of the group feeling uplifted,
yeah.
by what people have been able to share, but also how that's inspired other people and impacted other people
Yeah.
to become better versions of themselves, I think.
What would you say to I guess one of the when we look at the men's wellbeing space and self-improvement with men and all that stuff, a lot of words that come up sometimes is like, toxic masculinity and things like that. Um, what's your thoughts on that as a concept?
Well, as our group, we have rules and boundaries, and we
Yeah.
don't accept men berating women in general terms and things like that. And yes, we can share a frustration we've had with a partner or
Yeah.
with a relative or something like that, but we don't allow that to spill out into all women are this and all
Yeah.
and things like that, because I want to hold women in high regard
Yeah.
and have respect for them, and so that is a really important part of who we are as a men's group.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely that's the whole reason why we created the rules. But why do you think there are more men that are reaching out for, and whether these sources are the sources that we want men to reach out to, or the things that maybe aren't quite as healthy, but there's clearly a need, like there's clearly something that is being seeked by men. Men are seeking meaning and depth and support and often arguably vulnerability. What is it about society now, do you think, that means that more men are having, whether the conversations are healthy or not, but potentially they're having more, this space exists and and there's more conversations that may not be exactly like this, but conversations that exist in this space about self-improvement, well-being and all that stuff.
Maybe there's a great sense of people not feeling satisfied with their own life.
Yeah.
I guess we've all looked up to other people, other men, and we can find great examples. I don't know, you David Beckhams or whatever seems to be a decent, clean living guy who's open and honest and is a good example to follow. But then you get examples of other people who are perpetuating hate against women, trying to make out that there's lots of things that you can do better because if you do it like this, but actually what they're doing is really harmful.
Yeah.
And so we need to test and check what is being peddled our way, really.
Yeah.
And understand and make sure that it is good and wholesome.
Yeah.
Not just for yourself but for other people involved as well.
So just to wrap this up, Tim, spoke about your journey. So when you first started on this journey a year ago, and you said there's some things that I wanted to change, did you envision who you are now, or are you still on this journey? And what does the rest of this journey look like?
I think I'm a much better version of myself.
Yeah.
I think this is a lifelong journey. It's never going to end. I will always seek to try and whatever I can do to improve on myself.
Yeah.
One of the other things we haven't really got around to talking to is spiritually for me. I've always been brought up with a spiritual side, and my faith is really important to me, and being authentic to that faith. But there are times when I've struggled with that, or perhaps not given it the importance. And that's one of the things I think I've also done is give that a greater importance in my life.
Yeah. And what's that done for you?
Again, it's that sense of I don't know, I feel better when I, spend more time. The more time I spend with God, then that makes me feel better, and it allows me to empower other people and to make them feel better as well when I share that with other people.
Yeah. So I guess it goes back to that kind of idea of congruence and your values. What would you say to people that maybe don't share that faith? Is there any way they can get that sense
Don't
without?
rule it out.
Yeah.
Don't rule it out. Be open and explore and find out. For me, having a personal relationship with God is key. I think very often people end up in a religious situation where it's all rules and things like that, and that's not what I've got.
So do you feel that the journey that you've been on has brought you closer to your God?
To some extent, yes, because it's made me evaluate myself and my priorities, and that is a priority, and it's something that I still want to improve on even more.
Beautiful. Right, we're wrapping this up now, Tim. Speak now or forever hold your peace until part 2. Tell us something, Tim. Let's wrap this up. Give us some, no pressure. Give us some sage advice or something profound to finish on. No pressure. You said something yesterday in the men's group, and I'm really, I think it was yourself. It might have been Jace. But there was something said in the men's group, and I was like, that needs to be a T-shirt. I can't remember what it was. But look, hey, I'll put you on the spot. I'm joking.
A couple of years ago, I was sat in a room, my lunch, and somebody walked in and switched on the light, and I was like, I didn't even realise it was dark.
Yeah.
And then it just came out my mouth. Sometimes you don't realise you're in the dark until someone turns on the light. And if you're feeling, or maybe you don't even know you're in the dark, or maybe you don't know that you're in a bad place, or maybe you do, but find a light, find a person perhaps who is in a better place, and ask them, what's making a difference in your life, because they will probably be able to give you at least one pearl of wisdom.
And I think you've hopefully you've given a few pearls of wisdom. Maybe you've been that light. I've seen you be that light in the men's group, and hopefully some people, I'm sure, have watched this and maybe you've given them a bit of light. So Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for listening to the MindKind Men's Wellbeing Podcast. I hope to see you next time.